The Mafia originated in Sicily, Italy, in the early 19th century as a loosely organized group providing protection and enforcing local authority, later evolving into organized crime. The Mafia was involved in Las Vegas's development. During the 1940s and 1950s, Mafia figures such as Bugsy Siegel were instrumental in developing the Las Vegas casino industry, turning the city into a gambling hotspot. The Mafia has its own initiation rituals. New members often undergo secret ceremonies that involve blood oaths, where a picture of a saint is burned in their hand to symbolize loyalty for life.
If I were to betray the secret of our way of life,
May my soul burn in hell, just like this saint.
may my soul burn in hell, just like this saint.
Amico nostra. Gentlemen, I give you our new friend, Vito Scaletta.
Al Capone made $100 million a year during Prohibition. The Chicago gangster became one of the most notorious mobsters, making vast fortunes from illegal alcohol sales, gambling, and prostitution.
The largest trial in Italian history began today in a Palermo, Sicily courtroom. It had all the makings of a major motion picture. But as NBC's Bonnie Anderson reports now, this was real life, the real Mafia.
The accused gangsters were seated in 27 cages along the far wall of the $43 million courtroom. It was the first time many of them had seen each other since their arrest.
The largest Mafia trial in history was in 1986-1987 in Italy. Known as the Maxi trial, it led to the conviction of 338 Mafia members, severely weakening the Sicilian Mafia's influence. The Mafia has its own code of conduct, known as omertà. It's a strict code of silence. Breaking this code is considered an unforgivable betrayal, often resulting in severe punishment, including death. The Black Hand was an early form of Mafia extortion in America. Immigrant criminals in the early 1900s used threats and extortion against fellow Italians, demanding money through anonymous letters marked with a black handprint. Mafia funerals are often lavish. High-ranking Mafia members, despite their secretive lives, are known for having elaborate, expensive funerals attended by hundreds, showcasing their power and influence even in death. The Mafia has been linked to sports fixing. Mafia members have been involved in rigging major sporting events, including boxing matches and point shaving in college basketball, to profit from illegal betting schemes. The Mob Museum exists in Las Vegas, the National Museum of Organized Crime and Law Enforcement, also known as the Mob Museum, is located in Las Vegas and explores the history of organized crime and the battle to stop it. The Mafia influenced fashion trends. In the mid-20th century, Mafia bosses were known for their sharp, tailored suits and luxurious lifestyle, which influenced American fashion, particularly in major cities like New York and Chicago. The Mafia has its own secret language. Mafia members often use slang terms or coded language, such as calling an assassination a hit, referring to their bosses as dons, or speaking in Sicilian dialects to avoid detection by law enforcement. Al Capone was brought down by tax evasion. Despite his notorious criminal empire, Al Capone was ultimately convicted of tax evasion in 1931 and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. The Mafia once collaborated with the U.S. government. During World War II, the U.S. government made a deal with Mafia bosses to protect New York City's docks from Nazi sabotage in exchange for reducing sentences for key mobsters. The Mafia has international branches. Although most famous in Italy and the U.S., Mafia-like organizations exist globally, with groups like the Japanese Yakuza and the Russian Bratva operating similarly in their respective countries. Don Vito Cascioferro is believed to be the first capo dei capi. He was a powerful Sicilian mafia boss in the early 20th century and is often regarded as the first person to hold the title of boss of bosses in the Mafia. The Mafia has deep roots in the drug trade. While early mafiosi were reluctant to get involved in drugs, by the mid-20th century, many families were heavily involved in narcotics trafficking, particularly heroin, with ties to global drug networks. The term wise guy refers to a made member. A wise guy is an official member of a mafia family who has undergone initiation. Not every criminal working with the mafia is a made member. which gives wise guys a higher status. The mafia has influenced Hollywood. Several real-life mobsters have served as inspiration for classic films like The Godfather, Goodfellas, and Casino. Some even served as advisors on set to help filmmakers portray mafia life accurately. The FBI's Operation Donnie Brasco infiltrated the mafia. In the 1970s, FBI agent Joe Pistone went undercover as Donnie Brasco for 6 years, gathering intelligence on the mafia and leading to the conviction of over 100 mobsters. The mafia used laundromats to launder money. The term money laundering comes from the mafia's use of legitimate businesses, such as laundromats, to hide or clean illegally obtained money by mixing it with the revenue from legal activities. There's a mafia island prison. During the early 1900s, Italy sent many of its most dangerous mafia members to the remote island prison of Santo Stefano, attempting to isolate and control their influence. Mafia families are structured like corporations. Each family is organized with a hierarchy, including a boss, underboss, consigliere, captains, soldiers, and associates, similar to corporate leadership structures. Joe Valachi was the first mobster to publicly testify. In 1963, Valachi broke the mafia's code of silence, omertà, by testifying before Congress, giving law enforcement critical insights into how the mafia operated. Mafia bosses rarely committed violence directly. High-ranking mafia leaders generally ordered hits or crimes to be carried out by soldiers or lower-level members to avoid direct involvement and limit their own risk. The mafia controlled many Italian-American neighborhoods. In the early to mid-20th century, the mafia had considerable control over Italian-American communities, providing protection but also exploiting local businesses through extortion. The mafia played a role in the French Connection heroin smuggling operation. In the 1960s and 1970s, the mafia was involved in smuggling heroin from Turkey through France to the U.S., one of the largest drug networks of the time. The mafia's income came from various illegal activities. Beyond gambling and drugs, the mafia made money through loan sharking, racketeering, protection schemes, and prostitution, giving them a wide criminal portfolio. Mobsters often used code names for safety. To avoid detection by law enforcement, many mafia members used nicknames and aliases, some becoming iconic like Lucky Luciano or Bugsy Siegel. Mafia wives were kept in the dark. It was common for mafia men to keep their wives and families completely uninformed about their criminal activities to protect them from both law enforcement and rival families. The mafia often buried bodies in remote areas. To dispose of those killed in hits, mafiosi would frequently bury bodies in secluded places like rural farms, construction sites, or even under buildings to avoid detection. The 5 families controlled New York City. New York's mafia was dominated by 5 crime families: Bonanno, Colombo, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese, each controlling different territories and criminal activities. The mafia had a dress code. In the 1950s and 1960s, high-ranking mafia members were often expected to dress in sharp, formal attire, suits and ties, as a sign of respect, discipline, and to maintain a professional image. Mafia members often swore on their families' lives. As part of mafia culture, members might swear on the lives of their wives or children when making important promises or taking oaths, showing the gravity of their commitments. The mafia had connections with Prohibition-era bootleggers. During the U.S. Prohibition, 1920 to 1933, the mafia greatly expanded its wealth and power by controlling the illegal production and distribution of alcohol. Mobsters sometimes went into witness protection. After cooperating with authorities, some mafia members were placed in the Federal Witness Protection Program, given new identities, and relocated to avoid retaliation from their former associates. Concrete shoes is a real mafia punishment. The infamous punishment of encasing someone's feet in cement and dumping them into a body of water to drown, known as wearing concrete shoes, was occasionally used by mafia hitmen. John Gotti's nickname was the Teflon Don. John Gotti, the powerful Gambino family boss, earned this nickname in the 1980s because charges against him repeatedly wouldn't stick, as he was acquitted in multiple trials due to jury tampering and witness intimidation.